Welcome all to Pub Sports Radio's Gridiron Gamblers, and only 3 games left in the season, and I don't want it to end. I had the bounce back week that I so desperately needed after a horrible wild card, and I'm just full of confidence and excited. And it's funny what winning will do to you. And he puts a kick in my step. I'm kind to everyone. Feels good. You were excellent as well this week. How are you doing, my friend?
I mentioned that a lot, and obviously we don't have it.
All right, we got some internet issues off the hop for Andy, so maybe we need to pull him out, Jose, and get him back in, get him rocking for us. Too big of a show to have any lag. Shout out to the Cappers joining us. Sammy Calmer in the house. Sky Dragon. Sammy Calmer says rookie quarterbacks in the conference championship game. Small sample size, but 0-4 is straight up. I mean, it's worse than that. Rookie quarterbacks have been awful, like absolutely awful. And we'll go over some of those stats. Sky Dragon says makes sense. Going to be 0-5 after this weekend. There's Papa Cowles in the house. Great to see you, Papa Cowles. All right, let's get Andy back up here. Andy, back in action. Take it away off the top. How are you today, my friend?
Good. Yeah. Am I better? Did it fix it? Yeah. I don't know what that. Sometimes StreamYard just gets a little weird. You just have to leave and come back. I left. I came back. But I mean, you're right about the confidence, and I feel like I've brought that up like maybe 8-10 times all year. Where it's like, you know what? It was an okay week, but I hit the second half play on Monday night, or I hit the Monday night play. Sometimes just having that confidence flowing into you at the end of the week is enough for it. And I mean, same case here. I had Niners on Sunday night. That turned out to be a grind of a game. Got it home anyway. Felt good to take care of that. Everybody who placed the world's easiest teaser legs got that home. Like, congrats to everyone who's not running a sports book, I guess, for that. And yeah, on to this week. With last week, the talking point of note was, how many hundreds of $1 million deal are we giving Daniel Jones now, because he's the best thing since sliced bread, and the internet can only react to what they saw in the last 5 minutes. And this week, it's is Joe Burrow better than Patrick Mahomes? Is it over for the Chiefs? And obviously the injury stuff has been just swirling. I've been in some deep conversations about that already today. My goodness.
I'm excited. I'm excited to work with you on these 2 games and work with the chat. Great to have all you guys here. Walla Walla Dose, Birdie, Terry Walker. Great to see all of you. Sky Dragon says Purdy on the road versus Hurts at home is the biggest mismatch in this year's playoffs. Says don't play Kansas City 49er teasers because San Francisco won't be in the game. We're off and rolling with Sky Dragon in the house. Let's just quick review of last week, the week that was spectacular. Chiefs team total under 30.5 at plus 105 cash. That was at plus 125 at kickoff. Went against me 20 cents. Jacksonville KC under 53 cash. New York Giants Philadelphia under 48 cash. That was a beautiful breakdown by our Andy Molitor. He was on the under 48.5 as well, but we'll go over his action. Cincinnati Buffalo first half under 24. It pushed, got too cute. Could have just taken the full game. Got too cute. And then Dallas, San Francisco under 46.5 cashed very easily. Andy, you cashed the under 48.5 in New York Giants, Philadelphia. You cashed 49ers minus 3.5, and you lost with the Bills minus 5. But you are now up in the black. And it's much more difficult for you to be in the black than it is for me, because I can put out bets anytime I want and have them official. These are just only from bets that you've given out here on the show. You've not added one thing at any other time. And that's very difficult to do. And you're in the black, and it is great to see, and it is richly deserved over a season long. I'm pumped up. We ready to get to work?
Yeah, just the 2. But boy, and even, I mean, everybody's rolling out there. Even golf is saying we're not messing with championship weekend. Golf starts a day early so they can finish on Saturday. They don't want to go up against Sunday. I love this weekend. The celebrations are just a little bit different at the end of the game. Because you can see it hitting people who've never been. Like, shit, I got 2 weeks of just floating on air because I'm going to the damn Super Bowl.
I'm so excited. We're going to be live for both of these games. We're going to have an extravaganza. We're going to have an NFL Pub Hub probably at noon. We've pretty much nailed that down at 12 p.m. Eastern, which will then roll into both of these conference games. And I will be hosting and drinking heavily and be bringing on a whole bunch of guests. So it's going to be a very, very enjoyable. There's DX Filer. Slatsy 45 says, love the Bengals if Mahomes is still limping around. He was so limited last week. Bengals blitzing is serious. Let's get to work. We start at 3 p.m. Eastern, the NFC Championship game. It's exactly what we expected for the last 8 weeks. The San Francisco, I guess 8 weeks is a little much. The first couple weeks with Purdy, I guess we didn't think we'd get here. So maybe the last 5 weeks. Why don't we say that? San Francisco 49ers, 15-4, 5-3 on the road at the Philadelphia Eagles. Now 15-3, 8-2 at home. We're at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We have a big weather difference in these two games. It's pretty nice in Philly. 50 Fahrenheit, mostly cloudy, 10 miles per hour. Very cold in KC, but we're here breaking down the Eagles spot. So let's get to work here. We will start with the line history in this one. At Pinnacle, this opened up with the Eagles -2 at -114. They're -2.5 at -110. From a totals situation, this opened up at 45.5 and is now at 46. My first thought was to bet the under, but of course it was because I went 4-0 on unders last week, and I'm sure that's wreaking havoc in my mind. And I thought, we'll wait and we'll talk it out. And this has already gone up a half point since I waited. But I wanted the under 45.5. Now it's at 46. We're going to discuss that more as we go. For cash flow, Philadelphia Eagles have been given implied line value from Sports Insights. So is the Bengals. But we're here. 33,832 tickets in. That's the most tickets we've been able to talk about on the Gridiron Gamblers show. 68% of the tickets on the Eagles and 91% of the cash. 55% of the tickets and 56% of the cash is on the over. Speaking of that over, Sammy Comer says that over is sharp here. Everyone on the under, and it's gone up. I mean, still we have 55% of the tickets on the over. But clearly, people who cashed on the under all last week are probably going to go back to the well. So I completely get the thought process there. And Papa Cal's bought out of his under 45.5. Very, very interesting. Okay, so the 49ers come in off their 12th straight win, an underwhelming 19-12 victory at home over the Cowboys. They've covered the spread in 9 of their last 10. The biggest story out of the 49er camp is defensive lineman Charles Omenihu has been arrested after a domestic violence allegation. It's pretty ugly. The pictures are out, and it's pretty ugly stuff. He had a career-high 4.5 sacks in the regular season. He added 2 sacks and a forced fumble in the wildcard win over Seattle. He only played 15 defensive snaps Sunday. He injured his oblique during the game, but he was able to return. And it will be a loss to the Niners lineup. The offense struggled, which is what I expected them to do against the best defense that Purdy has faced. They finished with just 312 total yards. They were 1 of 3 in the red zone. They haven't been very good in the red zone with Purdy at quarterback. Purdy was 19 of 29 for 214 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He's now 7-0 as a starter. He joined Joe Flacco and Mark Sanchez as the only rookie quarterbacks to win 2 playoff starts. Kittle caught 5 for 95, Debo 4 for 45, and ran 4 times for 11 yards. Elijah Mitchell had 14 carries for 51 yards. McCaffrey ran 10 times for 35 yards and a touchdown. He caught 6 passes for 22 yards. The defense didn't look good against the Cowboys, and it would be fair to say that this is an even better defense that they are facing on Sunday. The 49ers defense, though, was excellent. They held the Cowboys to just 282 total yards. The Cowboys were 5 of 15 on third down, 1 of 3 in the red zone. They didn't get a ton of pressure on Dak. They sacked him once, hit him 4 times, but they got all the pressure that they needed. They got interceptions from Warner and Diomodor Lenore. The Niners are 9-3 versus top 10 offenses since the 2021 season. They're undefeated versus bottom 10 run offenses since the 2021 season. They've allowed touchdowns on 26%, or scores, I should say, on 26% of opening drives this season. That's the best in the NFL. The 49ers defense has allowed 16.4 points per game this season. And the Eagles are going to be a very tough nut to crack. Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson. Lane Johnson certainly did not look any worse for wear with the adductor injury. It was hard to tell that he was hurt at all. So Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead are going to have their hands full The 49ers pass rush, 46% pass rush win rate, 5th in the NFL. 79.9 Pro Football Focus pass rush grade is also 5th. 11.6% quarterback knockdown rate is 6th. Philadelphia Eagles offensive line, 89.9% pass blocking efficiency. That is 2nd in the league. They've allowed 11 sacks. That's 1st in the league. 9 quarterback hits. That's tied for 1st in the league. And 120 pressures allowed. That's 4th. And you need to put pressure on Hurts. It's imperative. He's 20th in his passer rating and 28th in his completion rating when pressured this season. The Eagles coming off a dominant 38-7 victory at home over the Giants. They were up 28-0 at the half. They have only been 4 more lopsided first half playoff shutouts in NFL history. The defense looked very strong. They were 10-14 on third down, 4-5 in the red zone. Jalen Hurts was 16-24 for 154 yards, 2 touchdowns, ran 9 times for 34 yards and a touchdown. He went 7 of 7 for 89 yards in the first quarter. He looked poised. He looked excellent. Devonta Smith caught 6 for 61 in a touchdown. Dallas Goedert caught 5 for 58 in a touchdown. A.J. Brown was held to 3 catches for 22 yards, but we know he's a big play receiver. They ran 44 times for 268 yards. Kenneth Gainwell ran 12 for 112 in a touchdown, and Miles Sanders ran 17 times for 90. They will find things much more difficult running on the 49ers, but they can have success through the air, and they're going to need to. The 49ers averaged 185.9 receiving yards per game allowed to wide receivers in the last 8 weeks of the regular season. That was 4th worst in the NFL. Over that time, Eagles receivers had 210.4 yards per game. That was 2nd best in the NFL. The Eagles ranked 1st in the league in yards per pass attempt at 8.1. They should be able to exploit the weakness, the only weakness of the 49ers defense, which is their secondary. The Eagles defense was excellent. They held the Giants to just 227 total yards. They swarmed Danny times, sacking him 5 times, hit him 8 times. Bradbury had an interception. But the Eagles were winless versus top 10 offenses last season, tied for worst in the NFL. Now, a lot's changed this year. The Eagles' defense has sacked opponent quarterbacks on 11% of pass attempts. That's the best in the NFL. The Eagles' defense has sacked opponents 70 times this season, the most in the NFL. They lead the NFL in opponent yards per play at 4.8, opponent yards per pass attempt at 5.4, and sack percentage at 11.4. The Eagles are the complete package. They had the 8th best scoring defense, 2nd best yards allowed, 3rd scoring offense. They aren't very strong against the run. That's their vulnerability. They allowed 4.6 yards per carry. That's 26th in the league. In their last 16 home playoff games, the unders hit in 12 of them. For the Niners, they've had 7 straight road games go under the total. This is by far the toughest matchup that we've seen Purdy have. And I'm surprised it's just 2.5. I think this should be at a 3. I do not expect my 49ers to beat the Eagles in Philadelphia. They're capable of it, but this is a tough hill to climb. Take it away, Andy. I can't wait to hear your thoughts, your breakdowns, how we're going to get paid. We'll go over the chat and what they think. But the floor is yours, Niners, Eagles.
I don't want you to think that you're just leaning on these unders because you've had recent success with unders. I think as this ticks up, that might be a hot side eventually once we get close. If this gets bet up, I think you might see some buyback. And you're definitely, obviously, have seen some money come in on the other game. Obviously, a completely different situation. It's tough to bet this under right now where it's at, just because what we saw with the Eagles, even when they were trying to tone it down, and it'll be a different kind of attack. Obviously, we saw go look at you mentioned Brown, go look at Hurts passing yards, passing numbers, just everything because they didn't need it. Against the Giants, I mean, it was always the matchup we were looking for. I played some Sanders over rushing yards in that one. He got there at halftime. I mean, it's funny too. I'm glad I didn't do a ladder with him because eventually they just started giving it to, backups after the game got out of hand. Kenneth Gainwell was your leading rusher last weekend. The Eagles just got whatever they wanted on the ground. And that was always the breakdown with what they could do against the Giants defense. And I mean, getting behind like that right off the bat against a really good team who was well rested, who apparently the quarterback turned out to be just fine, coming off some injuries and late in the season. I mean, the Giants were just dead in the water. It's so simple to say, don't get down big early, but there are teams who can deal a lot better with that sort of situation. You think of some of those comebacks in the playoffs by Mahomes, or teams with offenses that can just kick it into gear and score quickly because they had huge dynamic weapons. I mean, who's the Giants' best wide receiver? it's it's tough to do it without, and the Giants' best receiver, no matter who you think it is not 2020 Tyreek Hill. Like, you're just not set up to come back. So that game got ugly and boring, and actually it got a little sketchy. A garbage touchdown would have put it over the total for me. I would have been mildly annoyed at that result. Obviously, it would have hurt my weekend a little. So I loved how the Eagles looked. They looked smart. They knew exactly what they needed to do to beat that team. And as you've mentioned, and the chat's mentioned it a couple times, it's a different kind of matchup here. This is a much tougher front four, front seven, but with a very beatable secondary. And there's a decent case to be made. And, every matchup is going to change how a receiving duo does. But week to week, like, it's for sure a top 3 receiving duo, the way I've seen, Brown and Smith play at times when they need to be, and they could have a big game here. I think Hurts has a decent game too, as far as not so much designed runs, but I think we see some scrambling here. You can be susceptible to that if you can draw some of that. If we end up with some zone coverage and draw them into deep quarters, and suddenly there's big areas of green for Hurts to run into. And I do lean Eagles. Drew kind of talked me into this one. I've loved the Niners. I've played the Niners quite a bit, but it hasn't exactly been a who's who for Purdy. They have so many offensive skill position players, but it's just tough. It's just a really tough defense they're finally going to go up against. It's a really tough offensive line that this pass rush is going to go up against. You mentioned the arrest. Not really a frontline starter, but it's definitely, he's a depth piece that cycles in, and so that will hurt a little with if you're looking to cycle in some rushers late in a game where you need to be stopping a team. So yeah, it's I think honestly it'll be kind of shoes on the other foot in this one. Philly will get run on a little, so I do think the Niners will have some success on the ground. And as much as I've loved Purdy and the fact that he's apparently a witch who has magic powers and can just throw 3 interceptable passes in every half of football and nobody ever catches him, that is going to catch up to him sometimes. He played essentially the same game as Dak Prescott, except worse. The only thing that all his interceptions got dropped. Like, essentially he had the Dak Prescott game. He threw a bunch of decent passes to some receivers who were open. He got bailed out by Kittle on a nice catch there. And it was also a spot where he threw 3-4 pretty bad passes, and we had some dropped interceptions that probably could have swung that game. So yeah, Sky Dragon knows the Purdy luck box interception stuff has been ongoing. This is a decent secondary here. So, Eagles -2.5. I ended up, even right now, I found a cheap price at BetOnline on this.
Eagles -2.5. I get it. I mean, everyone knows I have futures on the Niners to win the conference and to win the Super Bowl. And, I would I have futures on the Bengals, as you guys all know. I'm in a pretty good situation. I certainly wouldn't. I have no need to bet the 49ers. I have a huge payday awaiting if they can win, and I have
you have them to win the conference.
Yeah, 750 plus.
Are you thinking about just a couple of units on just Eagles money line, or
no? I'm thinking of taking apart betting the Eagles Chiefs money line parlay, because I really only need one of these teams to win, and I'm in line for a big payday, and a similar payday. Even though I doubled up the bet on the Bengals, it's almost exactly the same. And so that's what I'm thinking of doing. I'm not thinking of, because I just need one to go. But I'm quite confident in the Bengals at this point, whereas I think this is an extremely difficult test for the 49ers. So Sky Dragon says, first time on the road, Purdy put up 21 at terrible Seattle. Now he's calling them terrible Seattle. That wasn't what he was calling them a little while ago. First time against a good defense, just 19 versus Dallas. He says this will be the first time Purdy faces a good defense and is on the road at the same time. Not the first time he faces good defense, but this is the first time he faces both at the same time. And I think that I'm in complete agreement. Now, if the 49ers can get a lead, I think everything changes. I really do. We do not want to see the 49ers behind the 8 ball. You've talked about the luck box of Purdy. Would it surprise me if Shanahan was able to conjure up the first 15 plays of magic, run the ball down the Eagles' throat, and get a 7-0 lead? It wouldn't. And if that happens, then the game script, moves pretty sharply towards the Niners. If the Eagles take the lead, I think the Niners are in trouble. So are we in agreement, statistically led agreement, that the 49ers should be able to run on the Eagles and the Eagles should be able to throw on the 49ers?
Exactly. And I mean, a bit of a power number play too here, just where I'm at, and then also the matchup. And again, a little bump to this that maybe I wouldn't have had if I didn't watch the game last Sunday was a very, very conservative Shanahan. Like, I don't know what happens to. Do you remember Purdy's first game? Where everyone's like, all right, this kid, we don't know anything. Like, they're probably just going to lean on the running backs. And Purdy's out there slinging it into, deep post routes on like second down. And they're being crazy aggressive. There's something strange that happens in Shanahan in the playoffs. I can't explain it, but suddenly this team starts to be a little more conservative in spots where they shouldn't be. It was maddening to watch last week, obviously. Hopefully it's to my benefit here as they maybe punt on some fourth downs they shouldn't and take some field goals they shouldn't. So if that rears its ugly head, if we see the conservativeness that we saw last week from the Niners on some of the decision-making, I don't think they have a chance. You can't do that against a team that's going to get big chunk yardage on you through the air.
The very best thing for Niners backers, though, is that the Eagles looked so good against the Giants, who we talked about being fraudulent when they were going to play Minnesota. And the Niners did not look very good against the Cowboys. I mean, that helps. Look what it did for the betting market when the Bengals looked bad against the Ravens. And the Bills became huge favorites. And they didn't look good against the Dolphins, but they didn't look as bad as the Bengals looked. So O+ says, my concern with the Niners not scoring enough points. Well, the Niners score enough points. Birdie says it sets up so well for the 49ers play offense. He says between the two teams from an SOS standpoint, there's a massive step up for the Eagles. Niners seem to me to be the play. It's nice to hear that, but it's very difficult to take the biases away from, because we watch all these games.
Yeah.
The Eagles look spectacular, and I know that isn't a fair example of what the future holds, and we know that from the Bengals, and we're going to talk about that in the next game. Harold Williams says, I just think Purdy will be overwhelmed. He won't be overwhelmed if they can get a lead.
Yeah, we haven't seen it yet. I don't think he'll be overwhelmed. I think just some of his mistakes will finally start to cost them, and keeping up with this pass offense. What we're going to see against the secondary with a really good duo of wide receivers is kind of the reasons I'd be on here. And truthfully, as much as I love Shanahan right now, I like the way, I love the game plan Sirianni put together. And they were a much better team than the Giants. That was clear immediately. So putting a game plan together is easy for a bad team. Not a bad team, but a middling team like that. But if he can put together a near perfect game plan again, Eagles probably get near 30 in this, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on Purdy against a tougher defense.
Did it surprise you when I talked about Hurts' 20th passer rating and 28th completion rating when pressured this season? Did it not surprise you because he's rarely being pressured? But did those numbers?
I think the context there is a lot of times he's not pressured a ton, and a lot of those throws when he's pressured are just some of them are just throwaways, and also some of the times when he's pressured, there's just not a throw because a lot of times you see a pressure and he's turning it into a running play.
All right, that's
so that, which I know that doesn't affect the passing numbers, but it lessens the sample size.
So I understand your Eagles -2.5, -108. It sounds actually, I don't want to talk to me about the total here. I don't want to put words in my mouth from listening to actually, but I felt like you've gotten off of the under and moved to the over if that was a free $500 bet. Bookmaker and Bet Chris have now juiced the over at 46. This is up from 45.5 or 45 opener. They're the first books that I see to juice the over at this number, which implies that 46.5 and possibly 47 are coming. If you had a free $500 bet right now, what would it be on the total?
Probably still the under. I don't like this one enough to play. It's getting close to probably where it should be, and I think there's a wide distribution of of results where you see the Eagles do something like they did last week, where Sirianni finds what works for the offense and they just keep doing it, and it's like, oh man, this game's going to go over because the Eagles have, they punted once in the first half, and it's 24-10, 24-13 in the first half. And how the hell is that staying under at that point? So it might get bet up. And Sky Dragon, I agree. If this keeps getting bet up, you'll see some resistance again. I think there's going to be a little bit of ping-ponging, and we're very close to where this number should be. I'm probably staying off it and just sticking with the Eagles.
I plan to move on the under. That is my plan at this point. I think this is going to be a battle in the trenches. I think this is going to be a real hard-fought football game. I think this will be similar to the Cowboys game. It's just not going to be so easy for the 49ers, because even when it was tied 9-9, I was like, come on. We're going to find some comfort here because the Cowboys just aren't good. The Eagles are good. Andy has moved on the Eagles -2.5, and I will be parlaying the Eagles money line and the Chiefs money line. It's just too easy of a hedge to take away some of the pain that I could feel if neither of my teams make it to the Super Bowl. The question is, how much will I bet on that? And that's what I'm still kind of figuring out. And I probably should have done it. And we'll talk about it in the next game. But when it got up to 2.5 on each side, there was a +120 on the Chiefs that's gone down to +105. But we will discuss that here in our next game.
Last thought too, and the last time the Eagles played a road game was Santa had not come yet. It's been a while. They've had the benefit of not having to travel for a while. It makes rehab easier. It makes rest. It makes just rejuvenation, everything. So it is, San Francisco finally has to travel.
Yeah, and it's a big travel, and it's a tough place to play. That is the NFC Championship game, 49ers, Eagles. Our man Andy on Eagles -2.5 and -108. And I have the luxury of capping this game with you guys all week, which I will be doing. And I'm going to move on the under at some point, and then I'll be live betting it nonstop as we hammer both of these live games. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We have such a great group. O+, Terry Walker, Damon Santore, T-Mac, TNT, Gerald Jones. Thank you guys for joining us. It is nice to see you all. Isaiah Scurry, DX Filer. All right, let's move on to game 2 here and head over to the AFC Championship. Man, it felt good watching the Bengals take out the Bills. But nobody in this community feels that way. They're all Bills fans up here, and they're all very angry. But I don't know how you can't fall in love with this Bengals team. Maybe Eli Apple can make you take you.
Oh, yeah, he's having a day, huh?
Maybe Eli Apple can make you
funny.
It's like this
somebody needs to be a friend and just be like, hey, but let me see your phone quick. I got to make a call and just throw it against the wall.
Yeah. All right, let's get to work. 6:30 p.m. Eastern, the AFC Championship game. Cincinnati Bengals now 14-4, 7-3 on the road. Kansas City Chiefs 15-3, 8-1 at home at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, Missouri, and it is cold. It will be very cold. 20 Fahrenheit, partly cloudy. There'll be no precipitation, so 20 Fahrenheit and 10-mile-per-hour wind right now. That is our situation. Let's take a look at the line history here. This one opened up with the Bengals as 1-point favorites. Then today, the Bengals were 2.5-point dogs at Pinnacle. The Bengals were 2.5-point dogs for 2 luxurious minutes before they went down to 2 Now they are back at 1. So from a money line perspective, this opened up with the Chiefs at minus 113. They got up to plus 121. They're now sitting at plus 108. Totals wise, this opened up at 48. This dropped down to 46.5 this evening. This evening, it got down to 46.5 just 2 hours and 10 minutes ago. And then it jumped back up to 47.5, which is where it is right now at 47.5. And I want the under in this one. I want the under in both these games. And again, the reason why I haven't bet them and the reason why I need to talk it out is because I understand the bias that I have. I get it. I just cashed 4 bets on unders last week, and I want to keep making that money. But I'm expecting to move in that direction. Let's take a look at the cash here. So we had implied line value on the Philadelphia Eagles. I would say 20% line value on the Philadelphia Eagles. The Cincinnati Bengals have about 15% line value. Right now, 36,456 tickets are in. 75% of the tickets, 73% of the cash is on the Cincinnati Bengals. 34% of the tickets and 69% of the cash is on the under. The Bengals come in off an extremely impressive 27-10 beatdown of the Bills in Buffalo, extend their franchise best win streak to 10 games, put up 412 total yards, had 30 first downs. Those 30 first downs allowed by the Bills were the most that they'd allowed since the Chiefs put 30 first downs on them in that playoff loss last season. Joe Cool was in complete control. He completed his first 9 passes. Now, we said the very similar things about Hurts. Hurts completed his first 7 passes. It's impressive when a quarterback comes on the field in a game of this magnitude and says, I've got this. And that's what Joe Cool did. Completed his first 9 passes for 105 yards. Cincinnati came out, got a 14-0 lead after 2 possessions. Burrow was 23 of 36, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also ran 6 times for 31 yards. The makeshift offensive line protected Burrow as he was sacked just once and hit only 3 times. And, Sharping, second-round pick. When we talk about some of these guys that were coming in, now Sharping had been in for a while, and he wasn't the big question mark. But we had second-round picks coming in. They hadn't succeeded in the NFL level, but they were still thought of very highly when they were drafted, and they showed out. Jamar Chase caught 5 passes for 61 yards and a touchdown. Hurst caught 5 for 59 yards and a touchdown. And Joe Mixon was excellent. That was tricky to cap because the Bengals running game had been so porous of late. And Mixon comes in and runs 20 times for 105 yards and a touchdown, catches 2 passes for 18 yards. Samaje Perine ran 7 times for 33 yards, caught 5 passes for 31 yards. They looked very good. The defense shut down an electric offense. They held the high-powered Bills to 325 total yards, held the Bills to just 4 of 12 on third down and 1 of 3 in the red zone. Since he finished with 1 sack and 8 quarterback hits, Bengals are 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 road games. Now, if we start breaking down the stats, we're going to have a similar thing that happened last week. Last week, we talked about the Bengals stats. We talked about the Bills stats, and the Bills were better in every single stat. The Bengals ranked 14th in the NFL in yards per play. Their defense was 16th in opponent yards per play. The Chiefs are 1st and 9th in those categories. We said the same thing about the Bills, but when it comes down to Joe Cool and these Bengals, the stats just don't tell the whole story. They are more than the sum of their parts, and if you get too caught up with the stats with this group, you're going to lose your bet. The 23rd ranked defense this season in terms of passing yards, the 20th ranked defense this season in terms of third down efficiency. I just saw a defense that shut down the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. The Chiefs are number 1 in the NFL with 413.6 total yards per game. Number 1 in the NFL with 29.2 points per game. The pass offense, 297.8 yards per game. That's the best this season. The third down offense, 48.7% third down conversion rate. That's number 2 in the league. The Bills were number 1. They're number 1 in the NFL, averaging 6.4 yards per play. But now they lose Mahomes' mobility with the high ankle sprain. And they play a Bengal defense that we have one stat that they're 5th in the league, allowing 20.1 points per game, but they face a Bengals defense that's clearly peaking right now, a defense that is better than the numbers indicate. The Chiefs come in off an impressive 27-20 victory at home over Jacksonville. Even losing Patrick Mahomes late in the first half to the high ankle sprain, they stayed in control throughout the contest. Mahomes finished 22 of 30 for 195 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Henny came in and looked good. 5 of 7 for 23 yards and a touchdown before Mahomes returned to start the second half. Mahomes and Andy Reid keep saying that he'll be good to go this Sunday, but a high ankle sprain is going to be very difficult. And the idea is that it gets tougher on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then maybe it'll get better after that point, but it's going to hurt badly. Mahomes thrown 28 touchdown passes and 3 interceptions in 10 home playoff games. He's spectacular. Kelsey's once again shown why he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, 14 catches for 98 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Big Ragu gave out Kelsey 2 touchdowns at plus 320 on our NFL Pub Hub. The number 1 red zone offense in the league went 3 of 3 in the red zone. The defense was strong. Sacked Trevor Lawrence twice, hit him 7 times. Watson had an interception. They're making their 5th straight appearance in the AFC Conference Final, but they've gone 0-3 against Joe Burrow and the Bengals with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. And in the first matchup of the season, the same thing that could possibly happen here. Joe Cool was in complete control as soon as it needed it. And they were down, and then they came right back. As soon as Joe Cool needed to be the man, he was the motherfucking man. And I don't see why, with Mahomes not being mobile, the Bengals aren't in the Super Bowl. Take it away for us, Andy. The floor is yours. Bengals Chiefs.
Yeah, this will be something, because this line is it's wild. Like, watching this, like, there's a lot of signal. If you look right now at Chris, bookmaker, if you wanted to bet on the Philadelphia Eagles minus 2.5, they would take $50,000. If you want to bet on the Chiefs or Bengals, they will take 10. They're taking 20% of the size of the bets. A lot of books are limiting how much they'll take on this, because I don't think anybody has all the news on this right now. Nobody actually knows, but there have been some, paper heads that take bigger bets that kind of lead the way on some of the informational stuff that moved to 2 first. They were the first player, they were the first to cross over to 1.5. And sometimes there's some signal to that. The signal to that would be Patrick Mahomes is not playing. I mean, it's kind of what I'm implying with that. I don't know. I don't have any actual news. People around Mahomes are, and, obviously Andy Reid are seeming to think he'll be all right, which, he played the second half. It was obviously limited. He still looked a lot better than I thought he was going to, all things considered. I mean, how bad did he look in those first couple plays when he decided he wasn't going to come out, which was just nuts to me. I just couldn't believe what we were seeing there. It was really something. Gutty performance, I guess. Good for him. They got it done. But it's really tough to say what's going to happen. I will say, just right off the bat, I'm betting this under 47. I got the bad number here. This was started higher. I'm still fine with this. I found a under 47 minus 105 the other day. I'm gonna take this under. If Mahomes is out, it's that much better. But I do think this is a decent defensive matchup, and kind of a bit of a maybe hidden note. And I did speak about this a little yesterday. Was what was the biggest storyline going into the Bengals-Bills game? It was oh my God, the Bengals have lost so many more offensive linemen. This is going to be trouble. And then we had an inch of snow. And I do talk to, I'm in a group chat. We have a couple of former D1, offensive linemen who have been really big resources for stuff like this. And they both said, like, that's a massive disadvantage for the pass rush. Like, having a slick surface, having snow. The one even joked, he said, like, that's the only time I had a really good game, was going against some defensive rushers in the snow like that. So I don't want to make an excuse for the Bills, but maybe that was something that they were able to take advantage of. If you can give the defensive line a little bit of a disadvantage like that, and then also play a game like they played where they got the ball out really quick, I mean, the biggest problem you have is kind of gone, and then you just rely on all your strengths. So, and I mean, all these games that these two teams have played have come down to it too. I mean, it was people remember just Joe Cool being Joe Cool, but I mean, it was. I'm trying to think. There was about 10 minutes left. The Chiefs were leading by 4 with the ball, and we had a fumble. It was a Kelsey fumble that led to like a 50-yard touchdown drive. It was a fumble right in the middle of the field. So, I mean, the Chiefs were in control of that game, and a turnover turned it. They had a chance to tie it late. The field goal was a long one. I remember it didn't hit, and the Bengals just keep having their number. It's kind of wild. I took a small position on the Bengals early because I think it's going to keep running. Like I do think, and stupid too, because in even a situation where Patrick Mahomes plays, he ain't practicing tomorrow. Like he's not going out and taking all the snaps tomorrow. So I think there's a small amount of the media just really is going to run with all this, and there's going to be so much steam behind the Wednesday announcement of Patrick Mahomes didn't practice. Well, no shit. Nobody thought he was going to practice, but everyone's going to. And there, you could see a little extra steam in the market. It did get out to 2.5 today. And then there was a bigger group that released some Chiefs plus 2.5. A bunch of people ended up on that. You saw some movement in the market. They have some influence there. So it's bounced back and forth. It looks like most sharp books are kind of sitting in that 1.5 right now. But for the most part, I think this Bengals offensive line will finally see a little bit of some of the problems that we thought we'd see last week of the Kansas City pass rush. And truthfully, like we did speak about the Bengals pass rush getting home, Kansas City's offensive line is sneaky decent. And a lot of that is because of, the skill position players and especially the quarterback make a big difference when it comes to pressure rates and sacks. But if you strictly go down to it's almost like there's baseball bettors in here. Let's talk about defensive, stats that take the defense out of the equation. It's the same kind of thing. Win rate, when you talk about offensive line pass rush win rate, which doesn't mean sacks, doesn't mean pressures, has nothing to do with the quarterback. Did you win your 1v1 versus the pass rushers? The Chiefs are tops in the league in that. They're one of the better offensive lines when it comes to just doing their job. And then the rest is obviously we probably don't see the Patrick Mahomes that scampers around, extends a play for 15 seconds, and then makes some ridiculous pass to Kelsey after the linebacker's been chasing him for 15 seconds, is finally out of gas. So I do worry about some of the big plays that Kansas City got there, which is, again, another reason to like this under. I think Kansas City will have to come in with a different game plan. Obviously, if it's Henny, it's a completely different game plan. But he's been a pretty apt backup. He looked cold-blooded as hell out there, man. He just stepped in and played. He didn't miss a damn beat. Obviously, he's not out there throwing submarine sidearm passes, but he looks just fine. So it's if this gets out to Bengals 3.5, I'll probably buy back on some KC, have a nice little middle. But truly, my position on this is definitely the under 47 at this point. And if it's, if we get a Henny announcement at some point, I think it ticks down a little further.
Surprisingly, Pinnacle moved it up a full point. So it was at 4:10 p.m. This was at 46.5 minus 108 to the over. At 6:24 p.m., they moved it up to 47.5 minus 104 to the over. So we can get you, for show purposes, the under 47.5 at minus 111, which is available right now at Pinnacle. What a spectacular job by Papa Calls getting the opener under 51.5.
Oh, yeah. He was just mashing buttons on Sunday night.
That is absolutely spectacular work. Absolutely spectacular work. So we have locked you in on the under. I want to bet the under. I expect, with the lack of mobility from Mahomes and the ability for Burrow to have these long drives. I love what you said about the offensive line, because that was really evident that how good they were. I don't expect to see that. And this Chiefs team has a plethora of players. I believe they have 7 players on their team with at least 3.5 sacks. They can be dangerous, although we didn't see that much of that against Jacksonville. They didn't really have to be that strong. They will have to be here. It's crucial. We have Birdie on the Bengals money line. Kurt Gray is on Kansas City here. And I can't believe Papa Call's got that 51.5. That's an absolute thing of beauty right there.
Gem. That's kind of his MO this year. Just sniping early numbers. He's gonna lose some damn accounts, Papa.
Sky Dragon says the difference is last week you got 6. This week they have to win the game outright. I expect them to do it. I expect them to do it again. It just seems like they have the Chiefs' number, and they just seem so poised and confident right now. In saying that, I'm not going to put myself in a position where I can have any losses compound. If there is a 3 or 3.5 available for the Chiefs, I might add to the hedge, but I'm going to bet. That's when I feel like the time is right. And it's crucial to get the Chiefs at the biggest dog price possible for the Eagles-Chiefs moneyline parlay. But it does take away a little bit of my action being so it's so close to a huge score. And, man, last year, Avalanche Lightning was just a thing of absolute beauty. I'm getting quite a bit more here with the Niners at 15-1. But the Bengals at 7.5-1 is similar. Sky Dragon says, would you have said that a week ago today, or you were reacting to what you saw last? Yes, I'm reacting to Mahomes' high ankle injury.
I think he's more referring to, remember how the Bengals looked? And to be fair, and I brought this up, if you look at the last 8 games that the Ravens played, that defense was top 5. I mean, because remember how bad this Bengals offense looked against the Ravens in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was rough, and they really slogged. That was a tough matchup. They needed a defensive score to get them here. God, it's just like everything. Like the Bengals in the playoffs the last 2 years, it's been wild. Can't imagine being a Bengals fan. It's not good for your heart.
But I'm definitely reacting to what I just saw last. Being able to go into Buffalo and destroy them. Now, we knew Buffalo had vulnerabilities, but to be able to destroy them the way they did, I would be much, much, much more concerned if this week the Bengals were playing the Eagles. And, we can deal with that if we have to deal with that. I'm not with when you take away Mahomes' ability to, like you said, extend plays and throw these wild sidearm passes and things of that nature. They don't scare me. They simply don't scare me. Now, the Bengals can struggle at the safety position, and there's no reason why Kelsey's not going to have another 14-catch day. But other than that, yeah, what I saw from the Bengals on the weekend was championship pedigree. And I know they haven't won one yet, but that's why they're so hungry. That's what I saw. And it's playing. I mean, that's the problem, Sky Dragon, with gambling. I try to talk about it over and over and over again, is the biases that we have by watching games and how you have other cappers like Spanky who beats the line by 4.5 points and goes out for dinner. He doesn't watch the game. He doesn't care. He doesn't need to watch the game. Yeah. It's all about beating the line. And I've often thought that the cappers who don't watch the game and just have their models are probably better than us because we have these issues about certain teams. Sky Dragon said the Ravens had Cincinnati on the rope. Cincinnati then came and played the best game they played in the last 10 years. Yeah, no, I hear you. And it's the reason why I want to talk everything out before I bet anything. And I'm going to hedge my position on my futures. Brady said, I said the last time these teams played in Kansas City with a healthy Mahomes, the wrong team was favored. I'm pissed we don't have a healthy Mahomes, and I could get a better money line price on the Bengals. For the sake of sports, yeah, we'd prefer to watch the Chiefs at their best. But for my Bengals futures, this is perfect. Absolutely perfect that Mahomes is not going to be mobile. So I'm going to move on do you think that there's a chance, Andy, with this buyback here on the total at Pinnacle, that the other books will follow suit? Because we are certain, you're absolutely right that Mahomes is not practicing tomorrow. So that's, even just reading the injury report is going to affect the line a little bit. Do you think that there's a 47.5 in the morning?
Chris is at 46.5 right now. You're starting to see it tick down at some places, and again, they're not. Even that is not that they're taking a third of the amount that they would take on the total in the San Francisco game. So that's maybe kind of what we're seeing too. Is like everybody has lower limits on this game because of the uncertainty. So it's a little trickier to read this market, but at the same time, this is a wild adjustment if you think about it, because I mean, go look at that game from earlier in the year, and it was week 13 that closed Chiefs -2.5 in Cincinnati. What do you give teams for home field right now, Jimmy?
2.5.
Okay. So even if we go conservative and give a team 2 points for home field, that is to say that the Chiefs were 4.5-point favorites on a neutral field at that point. And if that game would have been played in Kansas City, they'd have been 6.5-point favorites. Just taking away the 2 for Cincy, giving it to Kansas City. So the fact that, we have this game happening right now in Kansas City, and they're a 1 to 1.5-point dog, let's just work off the 6. They're saying we're making a 7-point adjustment. And truthfully, for Mahomes, obviously. So, I mean, it just doesn't feel like a halfway point one where it's like, we had these with some of these quarterbacks where we're going to put it in the middle because maybe he plays, maybe he doesn't. And they could be sitting this at like Kansas City -2.5 and not be crossing really a key number or anything. So to me, it really screams. And to be fair, this quarterbacks nowadays, we saw it with Herbert, we saw it with Allen. These quarterbacks are calling their own number a little. I talked about that a little earlier in the week, where it seems like they have a little more sway than the team doctor or the coaches anymore, as far as if they get to play now. 5-10 years ago, there's no chance you're playing on this ankle. He's just toast. We already know that. But these star quarterbacks can call their own number a little, and man, if he plays, I won't be surprised. I guess I won't be surprised. But right now, the way this market's sitting, and the fact that bigger bets have been taken and pushed this across to Cincinnati as a favorite, it really feels like he's out. Which, I don't know. I'm kind of hoping for a miracle, like he plays and he's okay and we have a good game. I don't want a bad game at all.
Yeah, it would. Well, you know what? I'd prefer he doesn't play and I cash my Bengals action. I just care about my
Bengals.
No
shit, no kidding.
That's all I care about. But I absolutely hear you with the breakdown. The question and the most difficult part of this all is that, and this is the difficulty with the Bills-Bengals game, is if you study the statistics, the Chiefs are so much better than the Bengals.
Yeah.
Like the Bills were so much better than the Bengals in every category. But there's something else going on here when you have a quarterback who's a winner. He just wins. And they've been in this position before. He never seems to get flustered. So that's the difficulty, is the statistics, and that's why you talk about the big change. The Chiefs are better in every single category. There's nothing that they don't stand out against the Bengals.
No, I make it like 4.5. If it's nothing ever happened to Patrick Mahomes, they win the game. It may be close. Bengals do what they do. Still no adjustment. It'd be Kansas City -4.5 in my eyes. So the fact that you're seeing a 6-point adjustment screams a lot, because, a quarterback of that nature is a big downgrade to anybody, even a really good, capable backup like Henny. But yeah, I kind of hope he gives it a go, but not before I get my KC +3 in.
Let's just head over to Bookmaker. Bookmaker went down this morning at 11:07 a.m. Yep. Bookmaker was at 45. This total was at 45. Bookmaker. It's up to 46 right now. So it's just been climbing there. Bet Chris did the same thing. This was open at 11:07 this morning at 45, -115. So it's gone to 45.5 at -110, then 45.5 -123, 46 at -110, 46 at -111. You don't think Bet Chris and Bookmaker go to 46.5 and then, keep climbing?
And right now, Bet Chris is at 46.5. Like, not looking at a screen, just looking right at the their console.
Oh, really?
So okay. It's a little juice to the over, but it's -116 to the over, -104 to the under. So essentially a cheap under 47 is kind of where you're sitting at. But Circa's at under 47, -115. So it's bounced around, but I'm fine sitting on this. Anything over 45 for me, truthfully.
And the 47.5 available at Pinnacle right now. I'm going to move on the under. I want it in my pocket. Here. And we'll be live betting this heavily. So Andy has moved on the Eagles minus 2.5 at minus 108. Minus 2.5, minus 108. And he's in the Bengals Chiefs. He's on the under 47.5 at minus 111. I am going to see how high this total gets in Niners Philadelphia and try to time it perfectly and bet the under. So I won't bet that tonight, and I will be betting the under here tonight in the Chiefs game. So that is my plan of attack for us here at Pub Sports Radio on Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern. We're going to do our NFL Pub Hub, which will lead into the Extravaganza live bet stream. And that is our plan. In our first Super Bowl breakdown, we plan to do a NFL Pub Hub on Thursday night of next week to do our first big, see what all the cappers are on, how everybody's handling all of this. Slatsy says, I know in the back of your mind there's a small wonder about those Canucks tonight. I hope that you haven't heard my son screaming throughout this show. He's got chicken pox. We got chicken pox in the house. So things are a little wild here.
I talked a little hockey with Pizzola the other night, and I just butchered your new coach's name. I tried to give it a French because it's Canada. I tried to give it. I said like Touche or something. He's like, that's not even close. It's Andy. You weren't even trying. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it.
So. Speaking of that, Andy, that's funny. You brought that up. We have a tradition here of people mispronouncing names, and unfortunately for Jimmy, the Canucks are now on the list.
And major surgery was needed to fix the Canucks.
I saw that the other day, and I stopped for a second. I'm like, I actually thought that's how you said it. I'm like, am I missing something? Is this a Canadian broadcast? And I've been saying Canucks the wrong way the whole time. And I'm like, there's no way, right? And then she doubles down on it.
Oh no, we had a show at the company I work for down in Costa Rica. The female capper was talking about the new quarterback for the Colts, Jacoby Brissett.
Jacoby's a great Brissett. One. Yeah.
That didn't go over well. The worst is Taves.
I used to say Saquon Barkley because you call him Sack Barkley.
Yeah. And
then I just call him Saquon. And people, I did it on the deep dive for like a year before somebody was like, I love Andy's bit about pretending he doesn't know how to say Saquon's name. I'm like, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I'm just saying it wrong. It's not a bit, guys. I'm just dumb.
Touche. It's
Touche. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Congrats to your new coach.
Yes, I'll be doing both streams, Harold. It's going to be a big Sunday. There'll be a lot of booze that will be drank and a lot of bets that will be made. But we're going to have revolving guests. The whole thing will be, I'll put out exactly who's going to be coming on for what live streams on our huge Sunday extravaganza. And this was so much fun. It's been so much fun all year working with you, Andy. You've done a spectacular job. And we have nothing without these great cappers in the chat supporting our show throughout the year. So we thank you guys enormously. Papa Calls, James, Swiss Horton, Birdie, Sky Dragon, Harold Williams, Spenny Pennybomb, Sammy Calmer, Slatsy, Sky Dragon, Birdie, O+. Thank you guys. Harold Williams, DX Filer, Jim W. Putt, Terry Walker. Thank you guys. Gerald Jones, Saturated. Thank you guys all for your support throughout the season. It's been extremely enjoyable. And what a great season we've had. Andy, what a treat it's been to work with you, my friend. Any last words for the cappers supporting the show?
Yeah, good job, you guys in the chat. Again, a lot of good notes, a lot of good comments and opinions. I take a lot of you guys, a lot of the stuff you say to heart because you guys are following this stuff very closely. And yeah, just a lot of great guys in the chat all year long. Good job, guys. And hopefully you get some wins this weekend. Unless you bet against me, then you can go to hell.
And if you were betting against Andy. That would be the Niners.
Yeah.
And
And
over.
I know I'm kind of cheering. I wouldn't feel the worst if the worst case would be the Eagles winning by like 1 or 2, because then we both lose, and that would drive me up a wall. If the Niners win, hopefully they win by 100, or if the Eagles don't cover, rather. So, good luck, guys. Enjoy your football this Sunday.
I was so nervous on Sunday. I was so nervous about the 2 forward. I've never really felt like that. I was like, I couldn't know. I didn't want anyone to talk to me. I just wanted to be alone downstairs with the lights off. Like I was just, it was strange. It was very strange. And I can feel it coming up. And the only thing that will make me not react the same way is probably just drinking with you guys. Papa Carl says, you betting the under 46 San Francisco Philly? No, I'm not going to. I will, but I think it goes up. I think it keeps going up at this point. I know a lot of people who like the over. I know a lot of talk of the over. So I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait and try and time this perfectly. I will be betting the under 47 here this evening on Cincinnati, Kansas City. And that is our show. One final game to break down after this. I miss it so badly. I miss it. Papa Gall sees the market basically at 46. We'll see. I still think it goes up. I still think it goes up here. So, we'll see. Thank you guys so much. Let's go out there and have a giant conference championship and then be enormously excited about the Super Bowl. The weekend that is in between the conference finals and the Super Bowl is our big horse racing show, Day at the Races, all day and night on Saturday. I believe that's February 4th. I have to double check that. But let's go out there and get that cash. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. Andy, you've been excellent. And thank you to our producer, Jose Bouquet, for all the hard work that he does making the show look good. Thank you, Jose. Now let's go out there and do what we do best, fatten our pockets, and get the fucking money.